The movie begins with a news report about a woman who claimed a man tried to bite her in a supermarket. And when the camera pulls away, it shows the family's dog looking frightened. Adam runs frantically. The young man rushes to his parents' room, where both are dead and covered in blood. He hides under the bed and grabs a gun. As he fiddles with the weapon, the creature enters the room and begins dragging his father's body just before the vampire finds him and prepares to attack. In the next scene, we meet young Charlie, a high school student in Clark County, Nevada, dragging his broken motorcycle home. He greets his neighbor Doris before entering the garage. His mother, Jane, starts complaining about the mysterious new neighbor who is piling concrete in the garage for no apparent reason. They are interrupted by Charlie's girlfriend, Amy, who came to pick him up for school. When Charlie is in class, the teacher takes attendance and several students are absent, including one of his best friends, Adam, who we discover has been killed at the beginning of the film. When Charlie is at his locker later, one of his childhood friends, Ed, pulls him aside and says Adam is missing. It then suggests they should check on that at night. Charlie hesitates because since he started dating Amy, he has become one of the popular kids, while Ed and Adam are considered losers. Instead of helping Ed, he goes on a date with Amy. When Amy drops him off at home, he sees his mother flirting with a new neighbor, Jerry, so they decide to greet him. After Jerry enters his house, Charlie receives a message from Ed who is upset, threatening to spread embarrassing childhood stories about Charlie if he doesn't show up. This makes Charlie run to Adam's house, where Ed is waiting. The two try to knock on the door, but no one answers, so they force their way in and sneak inside. While exploring the dark, empty house, Ed claims Charlie's new neighbor, Jerry, is a vampire. Ed and Adam have been investigating this for a while, and now they are sure of Jerry's identity. One piece of evidence being the fact that Jerry's windows are completely covered. He warns Charlie never to invite Jerry into his house since a vampire needs an invitation to enter. Of course, Charlie finds this ridiculous, and the two begin to argue about how much Charlie has changed since he started hanging out with the popular kids, whom Ed thinks are just fake people. At this point, they part ways. Ed goes skateboarding home until he is ambushed by the school bully, Mark, leading him to climb a fence to escape. Unfortunately, he encounters none other than Jerry in a random backyard, so he breaks into the house, thinking Jerry couldn't enter. But Jerry does enter, because the house is abandoned. Jerry announces that he knows Ed was watching him, while Ed starts running upstairs. He jumps out the window, but Jerry is already waiting outside. Ed falls into a pool, and Jerry simply tells him to calm down because what is about to happen is for his own good. He uses his mental manipulation powers to make Ed's conviction waver, before sinking his fangs into the young man's neck. The next day, Charlie realizes Ed isn't at school, so he decides to visit his house later, but only find his parents there. They welcome him with open arms, and he asks permission to go upstairs under the pretense of borrowing a book. In Ed's room, he finds a website of a vampire hunter named Peter Vincent. He also finds a series of videos Ed secretly recorded in front of Jerry's house, where we can see his car door moving by itself, proving the man isn't visible on cameras. This shocks Charlie deeply and finally convinces him that what Ed was saying was true. When he returns home, Jerry suddenly appears, claiming he needs a favor. He has a girl at home but ran out of beer, so he asks if Charlie has a six-pack. Charlie nervously says yes. Jerry follows him to the door, but as expected, doesn't enter. Charlie searches for the six-pack in the fridge while Jerry watches. He accidentally breaks a bottle, and Jerry offers to help him clean up, but the frightened Charlie insists he can do it alone. After handing the beer to Jerry and closing the door, he heads upstairs, where Amy is waiting for him. Charlie's mind is very preoccupied with thoughts about Jerry now, so he rushes to the window. He sees Jerry's hooker arriving for the night, who is none other than a neighbor, Doris. Charlie pushes Amy forcefully onto the bed when Jerry looks at them. Amy has no idea what's happening to him and decides to leave. Later that night, Charlie is woken from his sleep by the sound of a woman screaming, so he calls emergency services. But when the police arrive, Jerry manages to convince the officers that he just made a woman scream in pleasure. Charlie watches this interaction in disdain and pays attention as Jerry enters his car and drives away just after the police leave. Worried for Doris's safety, he sneaks into the vampire's house and begins to investigate. He finds a hidden symbol in Jerry's office and takes a picture as evidence. But before he can discover more, Jerry returns, forcing Charlie to hide inside a closet. Surprisingly, he finds a secret door leading to a corridor with several rooms, one of which is locked. He looks through the peephole and finds Doris there, then grabs a screwdriver to try and unlock the door. Unfortunately, he is forced to hide again upon hearing Jerry approaching. Through the crack in the door, he watches as Jerry drags the poor Doris and sucks her blood. During the attack, Doris instructs Charlie to stay quiet. Afterward, Jerry throws Doris back into the chamber and leaves the room. Charlie finally unlocks the door to get Doris out of the house safely, while Jerry is distracted watching TV in the living room. The two descend the stairs and begin to head for the door, until Jerry appears and forces them to back off. However, he is just grabbing an apple. Then he goes back to the TV, an opportunity Charlie takes to escort Doris outside. But as they leave, it is revealed that Jerry was watching them with a sly smile. The two manage to exit the house, and now it's daytime, but when Doris steps into the sunlight, she spontaneously ignites, traumatizing Charlie. When he returns home, he warns his mother to stay away from Jerry and never invite him inside, leaving her confused. At school, he decides to research a vampire hunter, whose website Ed had left open on his computer, Peter Vincent. He then tracks the guy down, leading him to the location of a theatrical show that the man performs. Pretending to be a reporter, Charlie gets an audience with Peter Vincent in his own apartment, which is decorated with various supernatural hunting weapons. But when he begins to ask how to kill a vampire and shows an imprint to the hidden symbol he found in Jerry's house, the man calls him crazy and kicks him out. With no other option, Charlie returns home and places garlic and crosses around his room. Meanwhile, the school bullies, Mark and Ben, watch from the window with curiosity. Jerry then approaches them and, in less than a minute, attacks both. Meanwhile, inside, Charlie is carving stakes to arm himself when his girlfriend appears and asks why he is acting so strangely. But before he can explain, Jerry knocks on the door asking Jane to hand over her son because Charlie broke into his house the other day. Jane is shocked to hear this but decides to trust her son Charlie, so she tells Jerry to get lost. This irritates the vampire, who grabs a shovel and begins digging in Charlie's backyard, pulling up the gas line to cause a fire. This causes the chimney to explode, igniting the house. Now convinced that Jerry is dangerous, the three jump into the car and start to flee. Jerry tries to chase them with Charlie's motorcycle, but the front wheel is broken, so he throws it at the car, scaring Amy. When Charlie tries to explain that Jerry is a vampire, his mother still refuses to believe him. Not long after, Jerry crashes his truck into the back of their car. He also sideswipes their vehicle before overtaking them and blocking the road. Jane panics, but Charlie shouts for her to keep driving, so she does. Unfortunately, they face more troubles as Jerry is still clinging to the bottom of the car and manages to break through the floor. It seems he has returned to his true form now. Charlie begins to kick him away, and Jane finally stops the car as he goes. But then another vehicle collides with their car, and the irritated driver gets out. It is at this moment that Jerry lifts their car. In his vampire form, he approaches and attacks the driver, draining his blood. Charlie then bravely intervenes with a large cross to defend himself while telling his mother and girlfriend to run. He slowly approaches Jerry, who has now returned to human form. But surprisingly, the cross only burns when it comes into contact with the vampire, and he easily throws Charlie against their car. While he taunts Charlie about how humans are stupid and have a tendency to miss the heart when staking vampires, Jane quietly approaches from behind and impales Jerry with a traffic sign, causing him to scream in pain. At the same time, Jane faints, then Charlie and Amy carry her, and the three jump into the dead driver's car. Charlie intentionally crashes into the family car, causing it to topple over Jerry. As the family flees the scene, we can see Jerry's bones realigning. At the hospital, the police also arrive to ask what happened, but of course, Charlie reveals nothing, knowing they wouldn't believe him. Meanwhile, Peter Vincent decides to study the print that Charlie left in his office the other day, and finally realizes Charlie wasn't trying to fool him. He calls the young man and asks him to come to his house. When the three finally meet at Peter Vincent's house, he eventually opens up. He states that the symbol belongs to a very strong race of vampires that emerged from the Mediterranean and kept their victims alive for days to turn them into vampires too. According to him, Charlie has no chance against this vampire since killing this species would require an army. Suddenly, Vincent receives a call announcing that he has a package delivery, so he asks the deliverer to come in and tells his girlfriend to fetch the package. However, it turns out to be just a trick. Ed enters, having transformed into a vampire now. Vincent grabs a crucifix nail to threaten him, but soon runs in fear as Ed pursues him, and the door to the secure room crushes part of Ed's arm just as he's about to reach Vincent. Meanwhile, Charlie and Amy stumble upon Vincent's girlfriend's body at the entrance and discover that the lift switch has been destroyed, meaning they need to find another way out. This leaves them with no option but to hide behind a shelf while Ed begins searching for them. After the two drop the shelf on Ed, Charlie grabs the closest blade and tells his girlfriend to find a safe place. Ed begins to choke Charlie and throws him around the room, but Charlie gets up again and grabs the axe displayed on the wall. The two face off, and Charlie swings the axe wildly at Ed until he finally hits him in the throat. Across the apartment, Amy arms herself with a gun and silver bullets, just as Jerry, the vampire, arrives. She tries to shoot him, but barely injures him since the bullets are meant for werewolves. Out of ideas, she finds the Holy Grail and throws holy water in his face, momentarily incapacitating him. If you think Ed is dead, he's not. He simply realigns his neck and continues attacking Charlie, pinning him down and preparing to bite his neck until Amy intervenes and hits him with a flail. When Ed gets back up, Charlie reluctantly stakes him in the heart, causing Ed to briefly return to his true self, telling Charlie it's okay before disintegrating into ashes. After announcing that Jerry is there, the two flee through a door that leads to a nightclub, while Jerry, who apparently recovered from the holy water, follows them. As the two get separated by the crowd, Jerry finds Amy and drags her. With his mental manipulation powers, he makes her taste his blood and completely incapacitates her while kissing her. Meanwhile, Charlie tries to go after her, but a bouncer drags him away, leaving him no choice but to watch as Jerry sucks Amy's blood. When he returns to Peter Vincent's apartment, the man is packing to leave. Vincent confesses that he has never killed a vampire before and only started collecting supernatural hunting devices because of trauma, as his parents were murdered by a vampire. After hearing Charlie vow to kill Jerry, he hands Charlie a special stake that, according to him, has the ability to turn a vampire's victims back into humans when the original vampire is staked. Additionally, he informs Charlie that a vampire cannot think straight when on fire. After this, Charlie goes to a thrift store and buys several items, including a bow and arrows. He gets ready and heads to Jerry's house, breaking all the windows to let in sunlight. Charlie then finds Amy inside one of the chambers, but hears her being dragged just before he can reach her. When he exits, he finds Peter Vincent, who is armed and came to help him. Here they discover a trapdoor beneath the chamber where Amy was held and decide to jump down. The two advance down the corridor and pass through a door, but unbeknownst to them, Jerry is lurking behind them. He then grabs Peter from the floor, and Charlie tries to shoot him, but Jerry catches the arrow. Next, Jerry slams the door, locking Charlie out from Peter. Peter begins to back away while shooting at Jerry, but the bullets don't seem to stop him. Finally, Jerry throws a rock at Peter's forehead, causing him to bleed. Now it is revealed that Jerry is not alone, and the young vampires he bit start emerging from the earthen walls, drawn by the smell of blood. Meanwhile, on the other side of the basement, Charlie finds Amy, whose mind is now corrupted by the vampire. She immobilizes Charlie while Peter begins shooting at the young vampires with his special shotgun, but the gun jams after a few shots. When Amy displays her fangs to bite Charlie, he stakes her but purposely misses the heart. Charlie then breaks down the door, and as soon as he sees Peter is in trouble, he shoots the ceiling, creating small holes for sunlight to come in to save Peter. Jerry realizes Peter was bitten when he sees him beginning to smoke in the sunlight and is slowly transforming into a vampire as well. Amy approaches Jerry and starts passionately kissing him, and with that distraction, Charlie uses Peter's lighter to set himself on fire and leaps onto Jerry, revealing that his suit is fireproof. Jerry begins screaming and thrashing as Charlie clings onto him, creating a large hole in the ceiling that lets in more sunlight and burns Jerry. Peter then throws the stake to Charlie, and he drives it into Jerry's heart, turning him into dust that dissipates into the air. At this moment, the young vampires return to being humans, with no memory of how they ended up in the basement. Both Charlie's friends and several others are brought back to life, thanks to the bravery of the young man.